So, we're here with our buddy Duncan Barbour, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh my God.
I know, we don't have an hour, but he has done so much. We know Duncan from Overland Expo when we first started there, 2008, 2009, whatever the first one was, and been friends ever since. This is our first time visiting him, though. He's always coming over to the U.S. So while we're here, I've seen photos of these trucks for a long time, and seen all the cool work he does, filming and doing movie shoots and that sort of stuff. So we wanted to check it out and also say hello. So Dunk also did Camel Trophy for quite a while, and we're putting them on really and running them. Yeah.
Well, I started off in '85 for the '86 event as a potential team member. So I was trying to get into the British team for that. I didn't quite make it, and that carried on for the next 3 years. So I'm kind of famous for having applied to get onto the trophy so many times, getting down to the last 6 and never quite making it into the team. But then again, back in 89, I kind of struck lucky in that I was asked to come and work for the event, which was great.
Very cool.
So yeah, from 89 to 94, I was involved with running of Camel Trophy worldwide. So that was kind of the dream job.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, we got 2 vehicles here. Why don't we dig into the Defender?
Right.
It's obviously not quite standard. Could you tell us a little bit more about the suspension axle setup?
Certainly can. So it started off as basically a chassis. 130-inch chassis. And because of what I was doing, I knew I needed good strong axles. We needed plenty of traction because I'm generally working in off-road stuff, but also carrying some fairly heavy weights when we're doing it. And when we started looking into the whole thing, it became evident that we really needed to go down the route of getting some of the equipment from the States. So, and for instance, the LS1 engine, which was built by, I can't remember the name of the company, but anyway, they built it to give me lots of low-down torque. So it's about 420 brake, I think, and 390 foot-pounds of torque, something like that.
And set up to come on real low RPM.
Set up to be down low, because whilst you do end up doing some quite fast camera tracking. And I've done in the past. I've been up at nearly 100 miles an hour with say an F1 car, for instance. That's going back quite a while. And that was in my other Land Rover, which was a bit more hairy. Most of the stuff is at lower speeds, but you certainly need the power if you're carrying a big crane in the back, or Russian arm, for instance, which we have no longer called the Russian arm.
Ukrainian arm.
It's now called the Ukraine arm. For reasons which are very unfortunate. So you do need that power there.
So you're hauling a lot of gear, cameras, people. This sort of stabilizing arm that Duncan's talking about to keep the shop steady while you're going over rough terrain. Good suspension to keep the truck as stable as possible, so those pieces of equipment have to do less work. And of course the capability to get through. And you'll see shots this truck has done, kind of picturing
Battle of the Bastards. So I did stuff with both of these on that actually. And there's one shot in particular on that episode where I'm chasing Jon Snow on his horse across a barren battleground. And even in this, it was struggling to get traction, even with these tires on. It was so greasy because they killed all the grass off.
It was just basically a mud slick.
It was a mud slick. And in actual fact, I still maintain to this day that this is probably the only vehicle that could have got those shots. And certainly when we went up to do the tests, we were up against some other vehicles. One of them was running on tracks, but it just didn't have the speed that was required to chase a galloping horse.
So you're kind of walking a line between all these different capabilities. You still need speed, but then you have to be able to do, obviously, some really rough terrain, mud, but have to be able to, like you said, accelerate as fast as a horse?
Well, that was the brief for my first tracking vehicle for Braveheart, which was the vehicle needed to out-accelerate a stallion from dead stop to full gallop.
You gotta love that requirement. And in your build sheet, when you're building your 4x4, that's not one that often comes into play. So That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned LS1, so that gives you the power you need.
Yep.
Transmission-wise, transfer case, is that Land Rover still, or is that modified?
No, Land Rover transfer case, but an American 4-speed Autobox. I think it's Torque Flight. I think is the box.
And the Autobox probably is going to be a much smoother takeoff if you're trying to get going without that gear shift in between.
Yeah, and in actual fact, in saying that, in my old tracking vehicle, I was a manual box.
Yeah.
But I did most stuff in low range. Because you can still hit 60 miles an hour in low range.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would just take off in third gear.
Yep.
So I pretty much perhaps only have one gear change to do in the tracking shot.
Yeah, and you can still keep it smooth. That makes sense.
And because we're using a stabilized head, it would take out that slight movement during a gear change anyway. But this is fully automatic or fully manual if I want it.
Okay.
So I've got the ability to run totally auto.
Yeah.
Or I can use my gears as well. So using the system in it, which if you come forward, you can see we've got her coupled up to Mega Squirt. I'm trying to remember all. It's been so long since I built the vehicle that you begin to forget some of the spec of the stuff you had on it. But the gearbox is programmable in that I can select the shift points and how hard it shifts. So if, for instance, if you're running with a big load and you're in, say, a desert environment, then you can have the changes a lot sharper, or you can have them soft if you don't have that demand on the vehicle.
And then it looks like you got racing bucket style seats, so you can be sort of tied in for all the rough terrain you're going through.
I mean, I've got standard across the shoulder belt, but also these full harness seat belts as well. So when we have been in really rough stuff where you have needed to be totally harnessed in.
Yeah. Makes sense for the high speed stuff, certainly. Yeah.
And especially it's not so bad for me. I guess I've always got a steering wheel to hold on to, but if you've got, say, a director or even a cameraman on that side, he's either holding on to a monitor or he's not holding on to anything. He's just sitting there and he's there.
And so the monitors in here, you've got your cameras to be able to see where your vehicle's at, how things are going in the bed, where the people and the cameras might be.
Yeah,
the ability to look at what the cameras themselves are seeing as well, or they could bring that in from their.
So I've got the top monitor there. Is kind of like my rear view mirror, except I've got two cameras on that. One so as I can see down the left-hand side of the vehicle. If I need to see down the right-hand side, I just stick my head out the window or look at the rear-view mirror.
Yep.
And then I've got one directly behind, so as I can see what's happening there. And then the monitor underneath it is the monitor, which is an HD monitor, which I then, when they're putting the cameras onto the vehicle, they can give me a feed from the camera, so I see what the camera itself is seeing. And that quite often that's what you're referring to, because the cameraman or the director will be wanting you to adjust distances at times. And sometimes you can take that off what you're seeing in the monitor. Other times you're having to use a reference point somewhere around you to gauge those distances.
So you're kind of doing a lot with the vehicle in the sense that there's the focus of filming, there's the focus of safety and rough terrain, so it's sort of built like a race car in the sense I see a fire system that can kick on, so you're sort of building it like you're going to go racing, like you're going to go filming, and it has to be able to walk sort of the
it's got to walk. And part of the reason for something like this, for what I'm doing, because on this vehicle you've got the ability to, because of all the roll cage framework that you've got around it, you've got the ability to mount a camera directly above the bonnet, for instance. So quite often I've got scaffold coming over and a camera mounted at the front. So if I had an engine fire, I can't lift the bonnet to get at the fire. So putting the fire eater system in was a bit of a no-brainer for me, because I just press the button and that
makes
dealt
sense.
with.
And so that's another good point. So you might be looking at this truck thinking it looks like a sort of a rock crawler exo roll cage setup, and it kind of is in a way, but it also serves the purpose of being able to mount cameras anywhere and everywhere, because every shot's different. And again, as we move to the back of the truck, you've got this flatbed setup and all this scaffolding here, and then of course you can add more. It looks like with the airplane track you can then move everything internally within.
The airplane track is pretty much designed for one thing, well, two things. So as I can use these to tie down stuff down, but also I've got seats. I've got 4 seats, which will mount anywhere on this.
So sort of a similar setup then to the UTV.
So those seats in the back of the Can-Am, I can turn around to face forward. I can turn around to face sideways. It's the same on this, so the seats will mount anywhere on this checker plate that I've got, and I've got 4 of them with. They're complete with their own harnesses as well.
Yeah.
So once they're on, I can seat 4 people on the back of the vehicle, and they can choose whether they look out left, right. You know, for instance, on Game of Thrones, we had 2 seats facing forward. The camera operator was sitting directly in the middle, and he was looking at a monitor which was just behind where I was sitting. There was the focus puller. He was sitting on one side. He had his own monitors, but he could also refer to the camera operator's monitor as well. And then we had the head and arm technician. He was sitting on this side with independent controls for the arm. He was facing backwards, and then sitting beside me in the front was the arm operator. So
full load.
So you've got a full load, and in addition to that, sometimes I had another cameraman on board here. And there was times when I had another stabilised head that they'd rigged off a scaffold mount on one of the corners at the back as well, or on the front. Wow. So you've got quite a lot going on,
and that can change every shot. You know, they can jump and say, okay, we don't need this anymore. We configure the whole truck and redo it and be ready to shoot in X amount of time. Hence all this adjustability.
Exactly. And also, you know, the whole cage. I've got the ability to put a cage all the way back to here. Okay. So there's another three hoops that go over with a matrix of pipework to connect them, and that's all been weight tested. I think we had a 2-ton weight on the top to check on any deflection on the whole cage when it was made. So, and that all goes down to the chassis.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's so specialized too. And looking at tires too, these I thought were 37-inch tires because they look so massive and meaty. And I think a lot of it is the relatively small wheel size, so you have a lot of sidewall meat. And then they're nice wide tires, so you're looking for flotation, grip as well, but you want to be on top of these bogs. And you know, we're up here in Scotland, and there's not a ton of off-roading you can do until you get into some of these big estates and these areas where I'm assuming they film. And so it seems like it's sort of endless mud if you start digging. So digging's not really the plan, it's flotation.
No, it's staying on top. And actually, to be honest with you, even with this completely aired down, you wouldn't really go on to bog areas with it. But a lot of the reason for me having a small rim as well was that I knew potentially, because in the past I've done a lot of stuff in deserts and things like that with previous tracking vehicles, I knew that I potentially could need that flotation, and also that's why it's on bead lockers as well. But even when I'm doing road stuff, if it's on a track that's a bit rough, like what we're standing over here, I'll drop the tire pressures on this, which you won't see happening on other tracking vehicles, to be honest with you. So I'm looking at my suspension, not just the tires, but also the king suspension that's on the vehicle as well.
That's the other thing I was going to ask. So we kind of went over the axles being Dynatrac and sort of custom built for having this much power, this much weight, etc. And then suspension-wise, what have you done from standard Land Rover 130 setup?
I removed it all.
There you go. So
everything.
So are the mounting points even the same anymore at this point? Now, of course, the axles had to have mounts made. And then on the chassis side of things, it's even different as well.
They're completely different.
So it's fully custom arms, coils to handle the weight and variability. King shocks, you said?
King shocks.
And then is that a massive sway bar as well? That
actually, on the back. It's probably easier to look at it from here, but this is quite an interesting anti-roll bar setup, because if you look at the side of it, it's actually got a freewheeling hub.
Yeah, I'm noticing that. So folks might notice this is actually the same AVM style hub we had on Goose, so through our Americas trip. And so you can lock or unlock the sway bar via a manual hub.
So I can go from locked up to give me that stability to unlocked to give me a bit more traction if I need it.
That's awesome.
So
custom.
And
so you got air bumps as well?
Air bumps as well, And, you know, there has been jobs where they really have been working pretty hard.
Well, and I'm sure that again, having a coil carrier and a bypass and the air bumps, you're dispersing all that heat pretty well with all the reservoirs, and it's working the whole day with variable weights on it, so I can imagine it generates quite a bit. And so, and a 3-link setup, it looks like?
All right. 3-link setup, Aston Martin brake calipers.
As you do.
As you do.
Nothing but the best.
And I can't remember the reason for that. I think they were the only calipers we could find that would go with the discs and fit inside the...
and tuck and be small enough.
So,
very cool.
Yeah, there's lots and lots of kind of idiosyncrasies on the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of obviously a crew has to get on and off the vehicle, so we've got a nice set of caravans.
It's like a private jet.
Yeah, it is. So these can be operated from here and in the cab.
Okay.
Stuff like that, these are there so as you can put a piece of scaff pipe across there, mount equipment onto it.
Yep.
Otherwise they come out, and I've got other bars that go in there that put a platform down at about that height.
Yeah.
Up at this height, and if I invert them, the platform will actually extend out the back, so you can make the back even
the whole
longer.
truck is about adjustability, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you can strip all this off and you have a really capable 4x4.
Yeah.
But it's all of this custom work that makes it a tracking vehicle.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, that's cool. And you can tell it's also about.
Not to mention his experience as a driver.
Well, of course, and I think that's the biggest
yeah.
factor, right? Is so you have somebody who's been around the whole world, Camel Trophy events, leading tours in just about every country that has good off-roading.
Yes.
And so that's a huge factor.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like to think that, I can go onto a job, look at it, and be able to give them a really good idea straight off as to what we can and can't do. Quite often when they talk about off-road tracking, they think because you've got an off-road tracking vehicle, it can go anywhere.
Yeah.
But as you know, that all depends on ground conditions, weather conditions, the weight that's on board the vehicle, how the weight's distributed, what exactly are they trying to get as well.
Yeah.
Because,
What sort of speed are they looking at?
What sort of speed are they looking at doing? So, I mean, definitely not kind of blowing my own trumpet. I've got decades and decades of off-road driving experience in all sorts of conditions.
Some might say he's forgotten more than most people know.
And that for me, I think, has always stood me in really good stead when we've been doing camera tracking work.
It's a lot to manage, I'm sure.
Yeah.
This is pretty awesome. We're right next to his other tracking vehicle, so we might as well check it out as well. And this is a UTV. Okay, so what model Can-Am is this?
This was, I suppose, maybe. It's Can-Am Commander.
Okay.
So XTP, I think, was the exact model when I bought it. So it's kind of the mid-range. It's between the kind of full workhorse type vehicle, and it's midway between that and the is it the Maverick, the high-speed one?
So you're kind of trying to walk a line between the utility of the utilitarian one and then the speed you might need, and this is going to fit places where obviously the Defender's not going to fit.
Exactly.
And do a different job, so to speak.
Yeah, but with still the same kind of off-road capability.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes it's almost too good, from the perspective you can get yourself in, potentially get yourself into a tough situation.
And so I can see you've built a tray on this as well.
Yeah, I built a tray on this, so that whole plastic thing came off the back, purpose-made tray, specifically so as I could mount 2 seats on the back. Yeah. And again, we're using the same cargo rail, aircraft spec cargo rail to mount the seats on, and also to be able to mount the attachment points for the harnesses.
Now, have you had any issues with UTVs and belt drives, right? Racing Baja, that's always something that people chew up. Has this coped with the weight of the gear?
Yeah. It has coped, but also I've been always very conscious of that. Yeah. So where I can, I'll use low range. Yeah. Because there's going to be less wear and tear on the belt. Yep. I'm very careful about how I engage it. So I'm kind of sitting on the brake, waiting to feel it engaging, and then I get my power on. Yeah. And that's always that's a bit of a difficult one because they do tend to clunk, and
from nothing to going is that little bit of a hit. And I think also too, when you're the one that's maintaining it, it's always a different level of usage and input.
Yes. Yeah. And I put a good quality belt in it for sure. Yeah. But and also that gets changed out, regularly every year basically. I'll just put a new one in.
Yeah, no point in waiting until it needs it. Yeah.
No. Yeah. But no, so far I haven't had that. But I've kind of, I'm well aware of that issue on all these CVT type vehicles.
But it does seem like the driver is the main, as usual, the main factor in how things last.
It's that floppy link. that connects the back of the seat.
The mushy bit that's pretty unreliable
Yes.
sometimes needs to be reliable. And then I notice all the scaffolding on the sides of it and everything. It's all camera mounting as well.
Yes.
Interior wise and engine wise, is it pretty factory?
It's factory spec. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The only things that I've changed on it, I've put spacers on to widen it slightly, so that it's a slightly
more
wider
stable,
style.
yeah.
It's got air suspension on it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, front and rear. So we've got airbags in here.
Yeah.
It's not the best of setups because of the way the suspension works.
Yeah.
You know, you've got this is a very narrow bend point, so these are working pretty hard.
Yeah.
But it does cope with a bit of extra weight.
Yeah, because you're just trying to bump it up a little bit from the standard load to 2 people sitting here, cameras, all that. Yeah.
And also I got a company in the States to send me uprated progressive rate springs as well.
Yeah.
And they've worked far better than standard.
Now, can something this size also use that Ukrainian arm as well, or is this?
Well,
is that so massive?
Well, no, they've now got a mini Ukraine arm.
Yeah.
So and that potentially could go on here. It hasn't been on as yet because they've got their own 4-seater Can-Am Maverick
to be able to use it.
So.
But yeah, it looks like it's been able to hold up to the abuse, being fairly standard as long as you know what you're doing driving wise, etc.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's a good quality platform to work off. I think I like Can-Am. I like the performance. I like the way it's been built. The roll cage I wouldn't mount anything onto, and that's why we built this as well.
Yeah, independent system for all that weight.
And then again, I need to be able to mount the likes of these seats, so I've got platforms that I can put up on top and mount a seat up on the top.
Yeah.
To mount a seat on the bonnet here as well.
Yeah.
We even had seats sitting out with
off
the vehicle on the side, which is part of the reason why we've got air suspension, so as I can
so it's not going to pull it over to the side. So you can do the air suspension side to side as well, not just the whole back.
Oh yeah, front to rear. Each corner is independently adjustable.
And then we were just talking about a second ago, but off camera. But the intercom system I see. So you have enough headsets for everybody to be able to communicate, know what's going on, and then despite all the noise of the vehicle or horses or whatever,
or tanks, or like on Fury. So this one's got a wired headset system. It's Peltor. This one's got a wireless system, which is also Peltor. So you just wear a belt pack and plug these into the belt pack. And that gives you an amazing range, actually. I can speak to someone 50 meters away.
Very cool.
If they wander off the vehicle, you can still speak to them.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's quite handy.
Well, it's an awesome setup.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
You're most welcome, Tim. And thank you for coming to visit me in my country.
Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Cheers, folks.